everyone, my name is Carrow Brown. I am an urban fantasy author. I also write under the name of Faye Black, and I am the executive assistant over at Rippaverse. I'm here today to talk about series Bibles. Now, this isn't the first time I have talked about series Bibles. In fact, this will be my second video, and it's my second video because since that first one, I have grown and developed and worked on my own series Bibles to a point where my idea of how to approach them and work with them have changed a little bit, and I wanted to discuss it with you. If you are new to the channel and you haven't seen my previous video, that's fine. I'm still going to rehash some of that old information here just for the sake of making sure that I'm covering all my bases. And we'll go ahead and start with, what is a series Bible? So a series Bible is a tool used by writers to pitch a story. That's the traditional sense of it. It was originally used by writers who were crafting for a series of TV shows in order to make sure that they had good continuity with the story. This was important with television. It's also important with movies because you will have different writers and different directors that are with the IP, and so in order to make sure that everything stays within the continuity of the show, they made the series Bible. This series Bible will track certain things like story timelines, the events that go on. It will also track certain types of grammar or terms or keywords that might be unique to that story. You see mythics and puck here used in my example. That's actually something that I have in my book of Queen of Swords and Silence. Same with speech tags. Occasionally, speech tags will be a little bit different, and we want to make sure that those are all consistent and the same. If there's one thing that readers and people who digest any kind of media like to harp on, is that things just aren't the same or they're not being consistent. You can also use this to track your log line or the elevator pitch for your works, and that's also really useful because if you have something that has a one-stop shop, by all means go ahead and do it. And you can also use it to track character progression and development. This is especially useful if you have a very large universe with a lot of characters in a series of books. For example, Jim Butcher, who is one of my favorite examples to use when I'm talking about writing craft, had a over 20 book series right now, and he's got a whole bunch of characters, and they have very drastically changed since the first book. And he's, in an interview, he says that he keeps all their changes in a Word document. And you can keep it in a Word document, you can keep it in a book, you can keep it whatever, but at least he's tracking those changes so that way he can use it in later stories. That's a really good way to do that. Now, I said earlier that writers and authors use it, and still the same case. Authors and writers will use this tool in order to make sure that their property is consistent and tight. Anybody who writes scripts for TV shows or comics will also use a series Bible, or I hope that they use a series Bible. And I know that anybody who has done YouTube shows have also utilized a series Bible because they're collaborating. So what can a series Bible have? A series Bible can have a lot of different things. I'm going to throw a few examples out for you before I show you a digital example that you can pull some inspiration from. And as you can see, it's got a couple things like the one-page synopsis, which I always really encourage writers to have because a lot of times publishing houses will ask for that regardless. So it's going to have the one-page synopsis. It's going to have your magic system in there. It's not the magic system that you may explain to your reader, but it's the one that you need to know as the author. Your book outline, if you want to have that on there. Character Bible, so the personalities and traits, and I'll show you guys a better example of that. There is a world building section, and within the world building section includes a couple of items such as magic items, places, any research that might go into that. It's really whatever you need for your series Bible, and it also depends on the genre that you're writing as well. Sometimes a couple of individuals ask me how can they do a series Bible. There is some software that you can use. There's Campfire, there's Word, there's Scrivener, Dabble, Wavemaker Cards, and Google Sites, which is going to be the one that I have an example of. So there's a couple different ways that you can have a series Bible. I'm going to show you a more detailed way to do it digitally because that's a little bit more forgiving when you are working on something for the first time, but I have done a couple of physical examples here. This is a disc system, and I have completely abandoned it 100%. But the nice thing about having a disc or a ring system, as it's referred to, is that as you continue to develop your story and add things to it, this will let you add to it in that sense. You can put pages in there and all that. The reason the disc system didn't work for me is because you need a special kind of hole punch. I don't have that hole punch, and once I realized that it was not going to work, I just stopped using it completely. The ring system, this is actually the binder that I used to write Queen of Swords and Silence, which is, if I can point my thumb in the right direction, right here. And this include, I had to migrate this to a digital system because the amount of research and the papers that I had in here just started to make this thing get really thick. So we had to do that. One series Bible I have actually is in this little tiny book, and the reason I did that was because I didn't want to get carried away with writing the story. And the way that this little book works right here is I track the issues of the script, because this is for a script, on these little sticky notes. So on the sticky note is one issue that I write. It's got the intro, the conflict resolution, the hook into the next comic in there. And this is a little bit more forgiving than this other one I'm about to show you, because I can take the sticky notes out, rewrite them, put them back in. And this has worked pretty well for this project, but this project is a little more unique than my other ones. This method is just where you take like a bullet journal and you customize it to put in whatever you want. I don't recommend this. Don't do this. So one thing that I realized as I started fleshing this particular system out for this story is that I have a lot of characters, and my characters ended up taking up more and more pages, and it's still a work in progress. This is really more of like a side hobby, this particular journal that I use, because I'm trying to consolidate as much information without getting carried away, and I thought the limitations of this would stop me. But again, sticky notes are a thing. I have been putting sticky notes in here. And I'll probably do another video in regards to this one, just because I'm very curious if this experiment is going to be fruitful. But again, if you've never made a series Bible before and you've not tried this, do not do this. This is not forgiving. This will be brutal. You might have to buy a couple. I would say that you should stick with a digital edition first, or get a ring system and start with that. And since I told you I was going to show you guys a digital example, this is going to be it. It is Google Sites. It is free. It comes with your Google account, and you can do whatever you need to do with it. I would recommend it if you are first starting off and you want to be able to easily access things that you have on the Google Drive, or copy and paste research. The more you can make this kind of like your personal one-stop shop for everything involving your story, the better. And how you organize it really depends on you. What I have right here is, obviously it's a series Bible, right? That's the title. And this first page right here, I really just kind of use for recent updates. And half the time when I use the Google Sites is because I'm collaborating with somebody else. So I want them to know what I'm working on, when I made an update, all that fun stuff. So recent update, for example, add a character page, info, and then here are the past updates right here. And again, mostly what I use if I have to collaborate with another person. Now, over here on the top, you've got these drop downs, which you can make right here where it says pages. There's like 3 tabs: insert, pages, themes, and all you have to do is just hit this new page, make it, and it will show up right here on the top. After you get to 1, 2, 3, 4, once you get 4+ pages, it just disappears. So if you can try and fit it into these 4 categories, that's my recommendation. So for books, what I would like to recommend to you guys to try is you are going to have whatever your book titles are here, and then you can have a drop down. And the drop down is going to be the synopsis of your book, what's the story, the one-pager, stuff like that. What I think actually works really well, and again, I did not write this book that I'm using as an example. I grabbed it because first off, it's a really good book. If you haven't read it, please do. And the other one is that it's already out there. It kind of shows you what I'm talking about a little bit. So you can have your cover on one side, how it will look on Amazon or wherever you're going to sell it, and then you can have your log line and then your book blurb right here, right? And I really like this idea because I like to have all these things in a place that I can easily access at a later time. For some reason, something happens to my book on Amazon, I like to be able to go back to what I have, copy, paste it back in, move on with my life. If you're somebody who uses the generation or the generator blurb thing where it gives you like the HTML code, you can copy and paste that in here too. You can also include things like the keywords that would be for your book, the categories, anything like that. You can just put it all right here. So if you have to go and put your book up for shop again, that's where you can do it. You can also put all the links for your book down here as well. So if somebody asks you for it, you can give it. The other thing that I really like about this particular page is you could almost use it as a media kit. I'd say almost, because you're not really going to publish this website to the general public, but if you kind of set it up where it could be a media kit, then when you move into actually making it, that would help you out a lot. And again, the synopsis, the one-pager, that's really just for you guys and however you want to use it. Characters, I do want to show you that, and you can have as many characters and categorize them as you want, but characters are kind of where I really dive into what it's going to look like, and anything, like, characters obviously get a lot more attention from me than anything else in the series Bible because I'm character driven first. Here you can have all the basic information that you want to hold for your character. You can track their personalities, what is their faults, what are their virtues, and please don't have the she's too nice as a fault. Make it something good. maybe have it be vain, or they're stubborn, or just something, right? You just make it a good fault. And it obviously is going to be coupled with a virtue. And then what are they going to look like? This is pretty self-explanatory. You see somebody for the first time in a room, what are the first things that people are going to notice? And then under that, you can add in anything else that might be needing inspection, right? So, if people first see me and I have a jacket on, they're not going to know that I have tattoos until I take the jacket off, right? So stuff like that. And because this particular series Bible I had made more for like urban fantasy, I include, what are the god powers? Are they magical? What are the divine powers? Hand-to-hand combat. I should fix that. Oh, it didn't fix it. How rude. Let's just fix it now. Live time. There we go. So do they have hand-to-hand combat? Are they supernaturally strong? Powers? Anything in here that you think that needs to be in there for you to track for your character. And if you're writing something mundane, maybe they type like 92 words a minute or something like that. Backstory, I try to keep this short and easy and to the point. I have one paragraph for the childhood, one about teenage, early adulthood, if I'm not writing about a teenager, which I very rarely am. And then one paragraph about the recent past that kind of led to the state of where the character is as the story starts, because those tend to be pretty influential on what's going on. And right here, relationships. Relationships are the bonds that people have with other people. How does this character feel about those characters? And then you could put in how those characters feel about her, but I usually just kind of try to keep it focused on how that character feels about the other characters in the story. And I have some random names in here just as an example that you can take from at any point. And earlier I was talking about how you could track how a character develops over, the set of the series. So in book 1, how does this character change? How did they change in this book? Did they change in that book, right? And you always want to make sure that you're keeping an eye on this, because there are a series of books that come out, and unfortunately those characters don't change at all. Or if they do change, it almost seems like they're a completely different person. And I'm not quite sure what's going on in the writing of that, but it's drastic enough that it's given me backlash in some places. World building is where we get really, really, really fun. And world building is where you guys can just go ham with this. And I have a couple of examples of things in here that you can take into account when you are making the world building. Religion is on here if you're creating a whole new universe, right? It's a whole new place. It's not Earth. It's nowhere that we've ever been before. So taking into account what the religion in that area is very useful, because religion tends to represent the social norms that we occasionally base our laws off of. So if you can establish what, the faith is there, great. Is it one pantheon? Is it dual? Is it multi? Is there no pantheon? Is it just the force? Figure out what you want that to look like and how it will influence the world of your character or your character itself. After that, I have economics and trade. Societies grow by business, right? Money makes the world go around, so how does this world go around? Is it done with rupees? Is it done with coin, gold? Is it done with traded memories? Like how does currency get by in your world? Then we have magic systems. Again, the magic system that you are tracking is really going to be for your reference. If you are not keen to explain it to your reader, then don't. But you, as the author, need to understand how it works so that way you can implement it. Same thing with magic items. Sometimes magic items are present in stories. Same thing with technology, by the way. I've got gadgets and gizmos down here. You could say that these are the same. I probably should have combined them, but because they're two different genres, I kept them separate. But they operate under the same. What is the thing? How does it work? What are its limitations? Right? So that's what you want to track for magic items, and that's what you want to track for gadgets and gizmos. You can also track who has them. So if somebody has like a legendary magic sword that was pulled from a stone that makes whoever pulls it king, then, it's important to know where that sword is at and who holds it, right? We want to know that. Places, any place that is prevalent in your story. If you do have a real life place, I would encourage you to go do research and make sure that that place is still there. I say that because I had a location in my first book that I had to completely delete because they actually leveled that entire building and it didn't exist anymore. So I couldn't use it, right? So I can't use a place that doesn't exist anymore. So, and then also if it's a fictional place, you know, what is that fictional place? How does it look? What kind of structure is it based off of? Who rules the city? What is the crime like? You know, just all the fun things that make a place that people congregate to, you know, have its own personality. And speaking of personalities, groups, factions, these groups and factions can be religious groups. It can be witch covens. It can be, you know, middle school gangs. You know, anything that you want, you can make that group and go from there. Terms, I'll come back to consistency. Terms are terms that might be unique to your world. Slang, certain kinds of terminology. Maybe you have a character that uses a word that's not really common that you can have in there, or you're tracking new words that are coming out right now that you want your characters to use. Mostly this is used for sci-fi places, and it's also used for high fantasy because they all have their own terminology. World history, again, if it's not modern day world, you could track your world history. How far you track that is really up to you. Carrow's general rule of thumb is if it takes me more than 2 days, that's 2 days too long, so I try to have the world history knocked out in about a day. With consistency, consistency has more to do with the writing style, any kind of dialogue, tags, and you know, you want the punctuation of your book to remain the same. So if you've got a particular thing that happens within your book, you want to track it so that way you can also let your editor know too. So that's really, they'll thank you for that. They really will. Right here I have marketing. I'm not going to dive too deep into that because this isn't really a how to market your book video, but if you've got some kind of campaign going on via Twitter, Instagram, with your newsletter, if you got a 99-cent promotion and you're looking for a place to track it, you can input a calendar feature into any of those tabs and you can track it, and then you can put in, like, you know, the reports and how your things are going and all that fun stuff. So that brings us a little bit closer to the end of the presentation that I have for you guys today. And the final question that I usually hear from individuals at this point is like, do I need to have one? Kind of, maybe, it depends, right? Like that's always the answer that I say. If you know that, if you have enough self-awareness to know that you're going to use a series Bible to not write your book, then no, you don't need it. But if you know that you need this in order to help you stay consistent with your writing, then, you know, absolutely go ahead and do it. As somebody who has done a productive procrastination before, I can confess that I have used series Bibles to not work on my work and actually feel like I'm working on it, right? Because I have a couple of series Bibles that are dead in my Google Drive right now, and I made them with the intention of using them, and you know what? Like, I didn't. But I did make those wikis, right? You can call them wikis. I did make those wikis for my reference, and I spent so much time doing that I could have honestly finished writing those books. So don't be Carrow. If you know that it's going to take you away from your project, don't do it. The question that I have for you wonderful folks is, the question that I have for you guys at this point is, do you plan to have a series Bible, and what method are you going to implement it with? And the reason I asked that is, again, earlier I said if you're going to do paper system, try to stick with rings. But if you're somebody who's like, no, Carrow, I'm going to use a regular bullet journal and make it work, please tell me how you will make it work, because I am very interested and I like to learn and see how folks do things, because it helps me have that content knowledge in the back of my head that maybe I can share with other people. Same thing with an online version as well. I showed you guys Google Sites, but if you know of a system that's more advanced than that and more user-friendly, then by all means, please plug it in, let us know, because somebody else will come after I post this video who has no idea how to do this, and they will be checking the comment section to see what you have to say about another product. But that's going to be it. Thank you guys for coming and hearing what I have to say about series Bibles, and I will talk to y'all again real soon. Bye!